What the hell?
Tired of this happening every time you have a faulty sensor?
Sure, why not? So first things first, this is not an easy job. You can still do it yourself and save a ton of money, but it's a little more advanced than some of the other stuff. So first thing you'll need is an able-bodied assistant, because yeah, parts of this are a two-man job.
Can we get a different assistant, please?
Found one able-bodied assistant. Plus, we'll need some tools.
Here's what you'll need. A T30 Torx screwdriver, 8mm and 10mm sockets and a socket wrench, plus the socket driver handle, a 4mm Allen key, a hammer, plastic trim tools, a metal pry tool, a rivet pick tool, a rivet gun and plastic rivets, some string, a sturdy support for the bumper cover, and of course, any replacement sensors you'll need.
A quick word about rivet guns. Not all rivet guns are created equal. As a matter of fact, this is the one you'll need to get. It is a plastic rivet gun. No, the rivet gun isn't plastic, but the rivets fit it uses are. What you need to do is make sure that you get one of these and not the typical metal rivet guns you get in a typical hardware store. The stem on the plastic rivets is much thicker, so it needs to have the larger end.
It's rather interesting to see how the rivets work. When applied, the rivet gun actually pulls the stem through the center, splaying out the backside. It cuts off the stem so that you have a nice clean finish. So on the outside, you have the nice smooth top with a little piece of the stem left over, and on the backside it's splayed out and gives a surprisingly tight fit. And because it's nylon, it'll never rust.
With the power on, you need to first figure out which sensors are dead. A quick listen will actually reveal the little clicking noise that the ultrasonic sensors make when they're working. Aha! Found one!
Actually, we found two, but regardless, we still have to remove the entire front cover from the bumper. So the first thing we'll do is turn the wheels to one side to make it easier to get at the wheel well. Next, we'll pop the hood. We need to get a bunch of screws under there. We need to remove the rubber strip along the top of the bumper cover. Doing so reveals 6 Torx screws that we'll need to remove to help us get the bumper cover off. Now we'll switch to the underside of the bumper cover. Along the bottom you'll find 8 bolts that are actually screws and will require the 8mm socket and socket wrench to remove. But enough of the easy parts, now comes the tricky stuff. Under the wheel well, we now turn our attention to those plastic rivets. This is one we actually replaced earlier, so there's a bit of a stub sticking out that we'll have to flatten down first. Once we do that, use the rivet pick tool and the hammer to knock the pin into the middle. This will break the inside seal and allow you to remove the rivet. If you need a little assistance, that pry tool will be your best friend here. There's a total of 5 rivets to be removed, so just take your time and you'll get them without any difficulty. And don't forget, whatever we do on this one side of the vehicle, we have to do on the other side as well. Now we need to remove that black trim around the edge of the wheel well. This is where those plastic trim tools will come in handy. There's 3 thick tabs on the inside that you'll have to get out, but it's usually pretty simple. Don't forget, gotta do it on both sides of the vehicle. Up inside the wheel well, you'll find 2 more screws we have to deal with. The first is another one of those 8mm screws that we've dealt with before. And the other is a 10mm screw, kind of an oddball thing because it's actually plastic, so be careful when you're taking it out. And don't forget, both sides of the vehicle will have these. With those 2 screws out of the way, we can now pull open the inside cover of the wheel well. Now, up inside the wheel well, there are 2 Torx screws that we have to remove. The first one's fairly easy to get at because it's right by the edge of the curve of the wheel well. This next Torx screw is a little trickier to get at because it's really close to the front of the vehicle, and there's this little bendy part here that gets in the way. And yes, you're going to get sick of hearing me saying this, but there's 2 more on the other side of the vehicle as well. So by now, the front bumper cover should feel pretty loose. The sides can definitely come off, but it won't come out completely. Here's why. If you take a peek through the front grille, to one side you'll see there's another set of Torx screws. The good news is, these ones are plastic and they're not done up very tightly, and as you can see, it's almost impossible to get a regular Torx screwdriver in here. This is where that 4mm Allen key comes in handy. By sliding it through, you can get the end of the Allen key into the Torx screw and gently undo it. And it should come as no surprise that there's another one on the other side of the vehicle. With those 2 screws out of the way, that front bumper cover is now going to be very loose and at risk of falling. Now would be a great time to put something underneath it to help support it. With something securing the front bumper cover, now is a great time to grab that piece of string and tie it around something near the top so that it doesn't fall on the ground and either tear a bunch of wires out or worse, land on you and hurt you. With the bumper cover now free from the vehicle and secured, you should be able to look down through the top gap and find the location of where the different sensors are. Each one is identical, with a big sort of black coily wire that terminates with 3 smaller wires going into the sensor itself. The sensor is held in place with a couple of tabs that you can pull apart and help slide the sensor out. That 3-pin connector is held tightly in place with a little locking mechanism. There's a little gray tab with a notch at the bottom that you have to slide up in order to release it. Once you've done that, you can easily separate them and you can now replace the sensor. Just a note about the sensors. When you take the connector off, you'll probably notice this triangular bump at the bottom of the inside. That's an alignment pin, and not every sensor has it. In fact, the cheap ones don't, and they're the wrong kind, so make sure you order the right part, or it won't work. In fact, the proper ones are usually in short supply, so you may have to wait a bit for them to come in. Quite a bit later. With the arrival of the new sensors, we'll check to make sure that alignment pin is in there. And it is, so we're off to a good start. Now we'll reconnect the wires to the sensor, making sure that we press them in so that they have a nice tight fit. We don't want these coming off after we've finished with them. Also, we'll flip it over and make sure that we push that little gray notch thing back down to lock the connection in place. And finally, we'll insert the sensor back into the opening in the front of the bumper cover, making sure those two clips grasp it firmly so it doesn't come out. Repeat this process for every sensor you need to replace. Now would be a great time to test them. No sense putting everything back together again if it doesn't work. So we'll turn power back on in the vehicle and we'll check the parking sensor display to make sure that they're all registering correctly. Well, first of all, no error messages, so that's a good sign. Now have somebody walk very slowly around the front of the vehicle so that you can detect if each individual sensor is registering distances correctly. And it looks like it is. Haha, success! So now we can start putting things back together again. You'll probably remember encountering some clips on the inside there as you were taking the wires out. Now's a great time to put those wires back in there to make sure they're secure and out of the way. With the wiring secured, now's a great time to take advantage of having that able-bodied assistant handy and lift that front cover back into place. You can now reattach those screws along the top. And remember these guys inside the grille? Yep, better grab that Allen key and reattach both of them. With the front cover firmly reattached, now you can remove that support underneath. It's not needed anymore. And now you can put those 8 screws back in along the bottom. Now we need to get the bottom half of the front bumper cover locked in place with the top half. And then those 2 inside Torx screws need to be replaced. Don't forget, these are a little tricky. And let's see, what do I need to remind you of? Oh yeah, they're on both sides of the vehicle. And don't forget to push that black trim back into place. And let's not forget that oddball screw near the top by the big spring and the regular bolt screw underneath the wheel well cover. And lastly, we need to put those plastic rivets in to hold everything in place. This is the final step. That's all there is to it. Yeah, right. That's a lot. As I said at the beginning, this is a lot more complicated than a lot of the other DIY videos. But it's doable. Hey, if I can do it, anyone can.